Welcome back, Soul Family. It is I think it's still the first week of March, um, 2026 calendar series for the Martial Mystic. And yesterday we started a sort of a new kind of, a different sort of premise in terms of being at war, studying conflict. Keep in mind, we've had Resolution Thursday. Um, that we started with this series. So, understanding that martial arts is a dispute resolution system, what other within the physical realm and self-defense space and domain in the verbal realm or in the interpersonal realm, in the self cultivation realm, what are the other dispute resolution systems um, accessible and and then how can they help us as we continue through our growth, our learning, and evolution as individuals and communities, societies, and one soul family, one human species. Today, I want to introduce um, an essay that I wrote last year, and I think it's helpful to, especially with today, Wellness Wednesday, understanding and having that Qigong context about stagnation and the downstream effects of stagnation and the goal for Qigong and as Tai Chi being a martial art, a martial Qigong expanding on the goal and the opportunity of Tai Chi Chuan training. So this essay, uh, I call it the five pillars of collapse of the West. I think we're getting some rain in. And today on Wellness Wednesday, we're looking at upholding inner integrity whilst external collapse. So Western society has long been a dominant force in shaping global culture. Um, it's been described as a hegemony, the leader in a unipolar world, shaping culture, politics, economics. Yet, like many civilizations before it, the West faces potential decline, perhaps even collapse. And as several key pillars of its foundation become increasingly unstable, specifically politics, religion, reproduction, sex, money, currency, economy, and health. Each of these fundamental aspects of human life are undergoing profound transformations. If the free flow of communication and thoughtful discourse around these pillars is blocked or mismanaged, or they become stagnant in any way, the consequences could be apocalyptic. Remember, when it comes to personal growth and health in the framework of Qigong, if the Qi can't flow, disease and illness can grow. So, this essay explores these five pillars and the role of communication as flow in facilitating evolution or hastening societal decline. So, firstly, politics, the erosion of democratic institutions, or however you'd like to define politics, right? So, politics has always been the engine that drives societal change, but in the West, it's also a source of instability, conflict, and tension, right? Increasingly, political polarization, distrust in institutions, and the rise of populism and authoritarian tendencies, as we've perceived them to be, they've we could say that they've fractured democratic systems in the absence of skillful communication, discourse. mutual discourse, exchange of ideas, productive discourse has devolved into tribalism, where opposing views are seen as threats to personal identity rather than opportunities for growth. Opposing views as threats. And I'm not going to get into it here, but in terms of personal wellness, individual wellness, we liken this concept, this idea, to the messages of the body, insofar as the body sending messages, trying to communicate messages of pain or decline of health, and enem- enemizing enemizing the body for sending such messages, right? Whereas if you are in touch and provide for that message to reach personal reflection and exchange with the message, you have the opportunity to mitigate symptoms, mitigate health, um, deter health, negative health consequences. Okay. When communication fails in politics, compromise becomes impossible, governance ceases to function, and instead of fostering open debate, modern political systems often promote echo chambers where dissenting voices are silenced or ridiculed. This failure to facilitate free thought has profound consequences: policy stagnation, civil unrest, and the weakening of democratic norms. As politics becomes increasingly performative rather than solution oriented, societies risk collapse under the weight of unaddressed problems such as inequality, corruption, and environmental degradation. The apocalyptic scenario here is a world where democratic institutions no longer function as mediators of power, but as tools of manipulation and control. The path to redemption lies in rebuilding trust in dialogue, listening to one another across political divides, and fostering a political culture that values thoughtful debate over sensationalism. So, I know it's easy to get caught in opposing viewpoints and sides. And so I tend not to do that, but rather desire to transcend perceived division and work in the place of unity and commonality. Understanding that and trying to find the foundation for circulation and flow. So let's go to religion and the loss of meaning and community. And currently, as um, with the global tensions, you could see the downstream effects of impacts of, I guess, more dogmatic religion, rigid religion institutions. So once a bedrock of moral guidance and community cohesion, has undergone dramatic changes in the West. Religion. Secularization has led to a decline in traditional religious adherence, and what remains is not always a healthier, more liberated society. Instead, many individuals are left adrift in a sea of moral relativism, lacking the shared values and a sense of purpose that religion once provided. This is a really a deeper subject that we have to sort of go into. Um, my my study is in the conflict and outright war that religion contributes to. So communication about religion has become increasingly difficult as any criticism or discussion is often framed as intolerance or bigotry. And this unwillingness to engage in meaningful conversations about spirituality, belief systems, and the role of religion in society just alienates people from one another, causes division. And religion, rather than a source of unity, becomes a point of division or worse, irrelevance. Remember, the root of this video series from last year was unity consciousness, mental health, and dispute resolution systems. Those three phrases and how we can improve, study, and evolve. In a world without meaning, existential despair can lead to apathy, nihilism, even radical ideologies that fill the spiritual void. And without open conversations about the role of spirituality, morality, and ethics, society risks losing its sense of purpose, leading to widespread alienation and societal fragmentation. The apocalyptic vision here is not just the decline of religious institutions, but the erosion of the social fabric they once helped weave. The antidote lies in reinvigorating conversations about meaning, purpose, and moral values, not just within religious frameworks, but in a broader societal context, right? Let's go to reproduction and um, sex, right? The energy of nature, creation, that oftentimes we can feel we are not in control of. So the commodification and the dehumanization of intimacy, reproduction, and sex. Sexuality, a core aspect of human identity and relationships, has also been a battleground of modern societal decline. On one hand, sexual revolution has brought about greater freedom and rights. It's also led to the commodification of intimacy. Pornography, casual relationships, and the hypersexualization of culture have disconnected sex from its deeper emotional and spiritual dimensions. Conversations about sex in modern society are often polarized. On one hand, there's the uncritical celebration of sexual freedom, and on the other hand, there's the puritanical backlash. What is missing is a balanced, open dialogue about the impact of sexual behavior on individual well being and society as a whole. When communication about sex is either taboo or superficial, people lose the ability to discuss its complexities. Pleasure, consent, responsibility, and emotional depth, spiritual connection. If we continue to reduce sex to a transaction or a performance, we risk the further dehumanizing relationships. Breakdown of intimate, meaningful connection leads to loneliness, dissatisfaction, and a broader societal disconnection. And in an apocalyptic future, the ability to engage in thoughtful conversation about sex could result in a society where intimacy is rare and alienation is the norm. Just think about AI, the propagation of AI, commodification of AI robots, and alienation of a population or a humanity that's not interconnected. So, to avert this, society must cultivate a more mature, nuanced discourse about reproduction, sexuality that honors freedom and responsibility, and pleasure and connection. And so, as you see, I don't go into deep into what the ideas are or the strategies are, but the effects of stagnation and the void of smooth circulation and flow of ideas, the the lack of safety to engage in discourse and mutual respect for the sake of exchanging of ideas. Last, or not last, but number four, money and the worship of wealth and economic inequality during an age of Bitcoin, um, cash, gold, silver. So, money defines the modern West in many ways. Capitalism has brought unprecedented wealth and innovation, but at the same time, it's also exacerbated economic inequality, created a culture of materialism, and that just values wealth above all else. When money becomes the sole measure of success, other values like compassion, community, creativity are put on the back burner. They're pushed aside, right? People would prefer to climb the corporate ladder by stepping on the toes and the heads of their coworkers and peers to get ahead, right? The problem with money is that it not is not just its accumulation in the hands of a few, but the way in which it distorts human behavior and societal values, and these anti role models um, fill uh, media and um, well our sphere of mentorship. So conversations about economic inequality are often stifled by ideological dogma. The rich justify their wealth as a byproduct of meritocracy, while the poor are often blamed for their circumstances. This lack of meaningful dialogue about the structural causes of inequality perpetuates economic systems that benefit the few at the expense of the many. Since I've written this, you've had the whole um, release or lack thereof of the you know what files. So, if unchecked, the worship of wealth could lead to widespread economic collapse, hyperinflation, unemployment, and the breakdown of societal safety nests, or nets rather, would result in civil unrest and the unraveling of societal bonds. The apocalyptic vision is one of a world divided into the super wealthy and the disenfranchised poor, with no room for a thriving middle class. How to avoid this future? Society must foster, and only we can do this, foster open conversations, di- uncomfortable conversations about wealth, inequality, and the responsibilities that come with financial power. The focus must shift from short-term profit to long-term well-being, holistic health and well-being. So this is the last component, the fifth pillar, health, right? Health here on Wellness Wednesday, the collapse of well-being and the medical system. Uh, and since writing this essay, you've had the propagation of this. You know, some say it's a positive, some say it's a negative, radical. Oh, I forget his, but Kennedy's title and his team's role in the National Institute for Health and other three-letter agencies within the government. So, what is the health of a population? What is the value of the health of a population where obesity is rising, physical health, right? The lack of physical health and mental health, loneliness, anxiety and depression. So the lack of mental well-being, where that's on the decline. The health of a population is a clear indicator of societal strength. In today's Western domain, we face a health crisis, that physical and mental Obesity, addiction, mental illness, chronic disease have become rampant, while the healthcare system is often more focused on profit than prevention. Meanwhile, mental health issues exacerbated by social isolation, technological overuse, and economic pressures, continue to rise. Communication about health, especially mental health, is stigmatized, almost taboo. How do we normalize mental health? Many people feel ashamed to discuss their struggles, leading to a culture of silence around critical issues like depression, anxiety, addiction. Moreover, the medical system, driven by pharmaceutical interests and profit motives, often treats symptoms rather than addressing the root causes of illness. That's the importance of these ancient technologies and modalities like Tai Chi Chuan, Qigong, yoga, contemplation, mindfulness, meditation. The failure to have honest, open conversations about health only lead to further degradation. And if the healthcare system collapses under the weight of its inefficiencies and population continues to suffer from preventable disease, the apocalyptic scenario is clear. A society where the majority is too sick to function mentally and physically. The solution lies in fostering a culture that prioritizes holistic health and well being, where conversations about physical, mental, and emotional health are normalized and encouraged. And so, the importance here with all of these pillars is the role of communication as, as an indicator of exchanging of ideas, exchanging of words, exchanging of and the conditions that build, the conditions that allow for uh, a safe container for the exchange. At the heart of each of these pillars, politics, religion, reproduction, money, and health, lies that issue of communication. So I found in my training of Tai Chi Chuan that principles of connection and communication in service of harmony presents the conditions for smooth circulation. Regulation is required, and no regulation is the goal. Free, open, and thoughtful dialogue is essential for societies to evolve and thrive. When we allow fear, censorship, or unskillful conversations to dominate, the collection, we inhibit the collective evolution needed to address the crisis we face. The failure to communicate effectively within these domains leads to fragmentation, isolation, and decline. We would all benefit from interfacing with Tai Chi Chuan's skill practice of listening, following, and understanding, interpersonal neurosomatics. Otherwise, political conversations continue to devolve into shouting matches. Religious dialogue is silenced by dogma. Discussions about reproduction and sex are stifled by shame or superficiality. The topic of money becomes taboo, and health struggles are hidden from view. Present are the conditions for collapse, not structure or harmony. What might be the antidote? What about skillful communication? What about mutual exchange? How do we foster environments where people feel safe to express diverse ideas, challenge prevailing norms, and engage in meaningful conversation? How would you define conversation? Only through this process of dialogue and reflection can we hope to address the issues that threaten the foundations of Western society. This encompasses the wellness environment as I see it today, here in March of 2026. And having the idea and the concept of one's inner integrity wilts external collapse. On Mental Health Mondays, we talk about the bottom up approach and the benefits of engaging the body for the sake of mental health and mental well-being. Here you're watching a walking drill that is taken out of the 108 Tai Chi form that I practiced with my teacher as we lived together and practice and train on a daily basis. This is a this is quite complex, and there's ways to start, but in the mental health sphere and framework, there's this concept called the bottom up approach in contrast to the top down approach, where typically talk therapy um, exists more broadly. Understanding the role of the feet as foundational for balance, structure, stability, fall prevention within the domain of um, aging, you see the importance of practices and drills like this. So, one of what are we really looking at here? You know, all of these five pillars we talked about, mental health, balance, Tai Chi walking. We're looking at building the conditions for harmony, the conditions for exchange and interfacing, where whether it's communities, societies, or ideas seemingly collapse or clash, we're looking at a smooth, as best we can, a smooth interface for exchange to produce a sense of balance and harmony. And that's why I developed Yin Yang Tai Chi, going to a space in oneself and then outside of oneself to the other, where we can build a foundation of exchange, where there's mutual respect, mutual exchange. And one of the ideas that has come to me is the interpersonal neurosomatics opportunity that lies within between two people, push hands practices in Tai Chi, and then what I call yin yang Tai Chi in the solo domain. Yinyangtaichi.org can give you a glimpse and a taste of where we're going. And 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 I have a short ebook as well that can give us an idea of how we can maintain this inner integrity with the martial moralities: humility, respect, righteousness, trust, loyalty, and so on and so forth, as the external world seems to be collapsing. So let me know what you think. What strategies are you incorporating? What strategies are you utilizing in in your body, within your sphere of influence, to build the foundation and the environment and the safe container for mutual respect and the exchange of ideas, for the sake of peace and harmony in our world. So that's Wellness Wednesday. Really appreciate you joining in. Let's take a look at our calendar poetry and see how it may pertain to what we're talking about. If one is able to keep the true singularity, Zhen Yi, the true oneness, the vision, the idea, the felt sense of Wuji, the Wuji state, then the breathing will not be to and fro. The stability won't be to and fro. The mind won't be to and fro. It's like the fetus in the mother's womb. This is called the great steadiness. The fetus in the womb has body, breath, mind, chi, and spirit all contained within the womb, like the mind, like the spirit, like the Shen in its residence. Once the once the baby comes out into the external world, now its breath is in the external, its body is in the external. It has come out of its container. Its food will now come from the external. Its ideas as it grows comes from the external world, no longer from the safety of the womb, which is the way of nature. But we're looking at the concept and the idea of the true singularity and holding it steady as best we can in all forms of the external, whether it's stable or whether it's collapsing. So again, thank you for tuning in, and remember to embrace the woo. And until next time, may your chi flow smoothly.